Welcome to Karmali Exchange. Now, normally you'd go to a business owner who makes profit to understand how to run your business. I'm saying scratch that. Go to the nonprofits. They're the big entrepreneurs. Keep on pushing to meet the needs of the customer will meet the needs of the business. I want to welcome Sharon Hapton. She is the CEO of Soup Sisters. We have a lot to learn. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's get right on. Let's set the scene. Everybody is looking on social media or some master class, and they're learning from current for-profit businesses on how to run a business. Tell me, what is it that sets you as an individual or individuals like you that puts you in the entrepreneurial world or in the business owner world?
You know, first of all, there is a misnomer, or there can be, people who think that charities are not businesses. They are full out 100% businesses. And the premise of how you would run a business, of course, is very similar. It's more the outcome that differs. So our outcome is charitable. Our purpose is charitable. Our purpose is not to make more money. Our purpose is to make more soup and feed more people.
So that's a key piece that we need to kind of be clear with the individual who's looking at this and saying, how can I, as a for-profit business owner, learn anything from the not-for-profit side or the charitable organizations that are out there? So let's kind of talk about how you kind of filled this need that was out there. You're doing well in your career. You come across an opportunity where you see a need that's out there. Walk me through that story. How did that all happen?
So I think what's interesting about the need that's out there, it was always this need within me. And I think that, you know, I started Soup Sisters here in Calgary in 2009 with a soup making birthday party. And it was, you know, I always said it was a birthday that ends in a zero, but I'm over it, and I turned 50. And I invited 30 girlfriends to a soup making birthday party. And we made about 200 liters of soup that night and delivered it the next day to the Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter, 200 liters of soup. They had never received a gift that way. It was very tangible. It was very direct messaging to the women. But what I had realized before that, I had delivered soup to family and friends for years. And I would just show up on their doorstep and they were like, oh my God, how did you know I was feeling this way? And I'm like, I don't know, here I am, here's your soup. And I realized that it had the power to change their day. It was really about the gesture. So when my birthday came around, I had that day, that first event, and then I kept very quiet with it for about a year. And I wrote the guidebook on it because the whole way which I knew this was going to work was very, very collaborative. It meant partnering with cooking schools in order to make it happen. My son years ago said to me, Mom, what's the big deal? It's just a cooking class. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. But there actually hasn't been a cooking class where you get together and at the end, you don't eat it. You give it away. So that was kind of where the model started. And then March 3rd, 2010, we launched in Toronto, and the media really blew it out of the water. But I was ready. And then we started launching about 6 cities a year, I guess, or 6 to 8 cities a year. Pre-COVID, we were operating events in 27 cities across the country. The other thing that was a little bit different at the time for the way I was doing it is people who came to these events, they were Soup Sisters and they were Broth Brothers, but they paid to come to the event. And that guaranteed the finest ingredients. And if we had a culinary partner that gave us bad carrots, we got to say, no bad carrots. You know, I mean, we're here paying for this so that we're delivering the finest soup to the people who need it the most.
Business owners have to take a listen to what you just said there, Sharon. I think that's one key thing. You first talked about the quality of the product. That's one key thing that you can just get stuff and put it together and call yourself an organization that does good work around the country, but you made sure there was high quality. One thing that people have to remember, and the similarities I want to identify, when I learned about your story, I mean, we met a few months back at an event for mental health. I did some digging about your organization, and so I said, okay, this is very interesting because when you look at, let's pick a big company, let's say McDonald's. When I was young, going to McDonald's, they would have this big sign up front that says how many millions of burgers that they've sold. Let's talk about the number that you have. You've served more than 4 million bowls of soup, 27 cities across Canada, going into the United States. This sounds just like McDonald's story of getting bigger and bigger, selling more millions and more millions. Yours is soup, theirs is burgers. You're hitting an end product to an individual or a group to help them lift their day. Kind of sounds like what McDonald's was trying to do with their Happy Meals. You can kind of see the similarities. I'm really interested on why stick with this as a not-for-profit. Why didn't you go into more events, more raising of money for profit versus not-for-profit?
So that's a piece that has always been a little bit on the back burner, and always working on it. And I did have times where, where I was in Costco, but as a cause brand. So it was still always the money going back to the business, to the charity. Just to be able to escalate fundamentally what we do. And thank you for noting how important it is that it's good soup, that it's quality soup. I come from a place where I believe that how we take care of our own is how we should take care of others. It shouldn't differ, So the soup that we have now got in our soup bank, which we can talk about, it is so good. You would put it on your own table. I think you maybe tasted it a few months ago when we were at that event.
I did. It was delicious. It was fantastic.
That's the most critical, important piece to it, is that what we are giving is something that we can enjoy ourselves. So I am always working on the cause brand piece that goes into the marketplace. And I've got things on the go. I always got things on the go, where I'd like to see it on a menu. I'd like to see it on menus in restaurants, a real have one, give one, not I eat this and give you this. What I eat is what I understand, what I know I'm giving somebody who actually is, a food insecure person. So those are things that I'm continually working on. We did become a soup bank in 2020, and that's a bit of a story on its own, but that piece of the business is now really only 4 years old. So what I realize I've got a product. So before that, I had a cause and a soup and a brand, but I didn't have a product until now. And what I mean by that is I'm actually having it commercially produced. The recipes are low sodium. I've had certified master chef on board for the development, and food scientists for the development of the recipes. They were not going to be shit. There's just no way they were going to be anything but really good soup. So now I've got the capacity, after only 3 or 4 years, to take a product out into the world that will still, again, support the charity. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the business. The charity is the business. That's my business. So I don't see it any different than any other business.
I think there's an opportunity here for people to also see how you start off with quality soup. You hit your target market. You realize that there was a bit of a gap. You brought in Broth Brothers. I love that name as well. I think that was a key piece where you're getting other parts of the demographics involved. So you're walk talk like a business owner. And so when you start looking out into the future, what are some of the biggest obstacles you have as a business owner running this, knowing who your end user or customer is?
Well, my end user is people who are food insecure, and truthfully, because we're feeding thousands of people in agencies all over the country every month, and we're supplying them either through an event, because our events are back, so we're now running a hybrid organization, but we're supplementing it with commercial produce soup from our food bank. And, to me, my end user is all the people out there who need a really good meal, who need good food to survive, who need good food to make it the next day, who need an exchange, who need somebody. I mean, I'm happy to send, 5,000 pounds to somebody who wants it, but I'm just as happy to meet somebody out on the street.
Sharon, there's a lot of supporters that you have. And those supporters, some of them are individuals, many of them are companies or corporations.
Yes.
How does a corporation get involved and support your cause?
Well, there's a few different ways. Overall, since the beginning, corporations, it's interesting. I didn't know anything about CSR back in 2009. And I think that might have been sort of the advent of it. And that was just this lucky thing. I think when I started Soup Sisters, I didn't realize that it was going to be the best team building event ever. And it is. We're talking about the camaraderie of a kitchen, the event protocol, and it would have been this way in any city that you were in, was you came to an event, you had an appetizer and a glass of wine, and you listened to a speaker from the shelter where the soup was going. So I realized really early on it was important to me that people felt connected to who they were making the soup for, because they were just so excited to be there with each other making soup. There was actually nothing like it.
Yeah.
So that was always one way in which corporations got involved. And now, because we're operating a soup bank, we're offering people, buy a truckload, buy a kettle, feed a school. We'll do all of those things. We have operations in all of those areas where we're making a huge difference. We're feeding low-income schools with a donation from Sodexo, which is amazing.
Let me jump in here and kind of give corporate and business owners a take on why supporting causes like yours or being charitable as an organization is important. We can talk about it's goodwill, it's brand, it opens up the view of the values of the company, so on and so forth. And I'll put that aside for now, but let's talk about some of the financial benefits. There are a lot of business owners who will make the money in their business, take the money themselves personally, pay the tax on it, then donate to you and your organization. And so then they're paying tax along the way in order to support your cause, and then they get a tax receipt. I'm saying don't do that. I think there's opportunities now that corporations can do a corporate donation. They can write a check from the company. They can have their own investments or assets that they're investing within their company and donate to organizations. They can build private foundations where they can support causes like yours. There is a huge tax benefit and a huge benefit to the end customer or user that you're supporting and all the other organizations that are out there. So for business owners, I'm speaking to you directly. There are better ways to support than just writing a check out of your checkbook from your bank account personally. Think about the corporation side. Now let's add on the layer on top of that, business owners, of about what your value system is. And so when you look at your employees, you look at your customers, they want to know what you believe in and what you support. And when you're supporting Broth Brothers, Soup Sisters, and organizations like that, it is a huge impact. So there is a financial benefit, there is a value system benefit, and I think that needs to be said. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes there just to kind of explain that, Sharon. So thank you for your patience while I kind of go through that piece. I think it's very important for business owners. Here's something that I kept on hearing prior to our interview. When there's so much government programs out there, there's so much government support, money flying everywhere, why are we always asking more and more from, quote unquote, the taxpayer, either by donation or by paying taxes that support organizations to help those who are, vulnerable overall? What are your thoughts for those types of comments that come?
I think it's a little bit of a messy, blurry field in a lot of ways. And actually we can go back to your example of, McDonald's feeding millions. And because now we hear a lot about, this many millions of pounds, of food was delivered. And I struggle with that a little bit because, a charity can receive a pallet of carrots, but that's quite onerous on a charity. I think I've gone off topic.
No, I think you've made a good point. Here's my take, and I'll call this a hot take for us on this one. My view is the government should step out of the way of helping the vulnerable. Let the organizations like yours and others get in there and do what's right. You know how to do it fast, better, more efficient, and you are a key piece of understanding how resources are utilized. I hate when I see the government get their hands in how to handle a business, on how to help the individuals, because I think there's organizations like yours that can do a way better job.
What I hear from agencies is that they lack government support.
Are you saying that you need the money from the government, or in other ways you need support?
No, money. Just money, if we can get it.
This is part of the argument that I have, is that I pay my taxes. They're going to take that money. They're going to determine which organizations get the money. They're going to give you the money, and then you're going to do your thing. What are your thoughts about the government stepping out of the job of supporting the vulnerable and let organizations like yours step in and take care of it?
Yes and no. Like we need their support, but then they bring in other things. Like, they bring in politics. Like, I'm not interested in the politics of whatever it is.
If Canadians feel that those who are food insecure or vulnerable in those areas, they will support it. We are very generous and kind and caring population. So why not go direct? Get the government out of the way.
Here's what I think. What we have is a mandate. We have a very clear mandate, each of us, no matter who we are, on what we want to do. It's expected of us to have a mandate. The government, I don't know. Is there a mandate when it comes to what I care about, which is food insecurity? Not so sure. And I don't want to call them mandateless. They're not, but it's so generalized when we say that government can step in and help us, and should they get out of the way. I just have a mandate that I care about. My mandate relates very, very much to tangibility, because giving soup is incredibly tangible. So that's a piece that is missed, void for me in a lot of situations, especially by government.
I think that's a valid point. I think there's some merit behind that point. And I would love to hear from organizations like yours that says, let's get the government out of being the intermediary of collecting the money. Let's just go direct. And let the incentives and the demand and supply of the market on people who need it and people who can supply and fill that need be open market.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I don't know how you start getting them out of the way. Really, I wouldn't know how to start with that. Do I necessarily feel like they impede me in any way? No, not really either, to be honest. And it's interesting because I'm really small doing a big thing. So if we took somebody bigger doing a big thing, they might have a different perspective on that. I have figured out, I think, how to get people involved on a really kind of almost emotional level. One of my lines, and I've got almost my own language, but one of them is that every good soup has a story. And I mean, we've given the soup to kids who are on the streets where the first thing they think of is, oh my God, this reminds me of Grandma's kitchen, and maybe the person walking by doesn't even see them as somebody who had a grandma. So, I'm kind of the touchy-feely place. Yeah, I think in the long run, there are organizations that are far more driven, whether it's their need for government or their need to not have government, than me. Like, they're not on my radar, not really. I mean, they're on my radar in that, there's a million things they should be doing a lot better at. And, it starts with housing. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But I can do my little thing, my little big thing, without a lot of thought being given to how that control is working in the world. And maybe that's me putting my head under a blanket a little bit, but I feel like, when you're running an organization, you gotta stay focused on your purpose. And, it's sort of, listen, I have a lot of government people who want to come do our events because everybody looks like, the good guy when they come.
I think that corporations have an opportunity to make a big difference. I think we're all, profit or not for profit, are innovators. We are entrepreneurial. We're driven towards a mandate. Like you said, we're focused on what needs to be done. We look for ways to be more efficient, increase the quality. I think that's a fantastic job that you're doing. I think support to Sharon's cause, not only when you taste the soup, but when you see the outcome, the smiles on the faces of the individuals who receive this product. It is fucking unbelievable. It is amazing what can happen. And I think we need to support causes like this. So all you business owners, and even if you're not a business owner, take a look at the links. We're gonna support as much as we can. Sharon, I want to thank you so much for joining me, sharing your story, showing business owners you can learn a lot from the not-for-profit sector,
Right.
and kind of telling us where the government needs to stand. And I really appreciate your time today.
Hazel, thank you so much. Super thanks, as I say. SOUER, super thanks.